Torah to the Ark. I am going to take a moment to, in a moment, we are going to turn to the back of our Siddurim. Most of you should have a little sticker in the back of your Siddurim, which includes a prayer for our congregation, community, and country. And then we will recite the prayer for Israel. These are communal prayers, and I want to take a moment to acknowledge that there are many people who are hurting this week because of the leak of a draft report that may, from the Supreme Court, that may overturn Roe versus Wade. And I want to just acknowledge a couple of things. I believe that one can be Jewish and be Republican, one can be Jewish and be a Democrat, one can be Jewish and have a lot of different political opinions about the way in which our government, our country should be governed, and the way in which society's problems should be solved. And I don't think that the Jewish tradition lines up with the stances or the platforms of any political party. And on the issue of abortion, it is very clear to me that the Jewish tradition and the Jewish community requires that this country remain a country where women have free and unfettered access to abortions. And I do that based on the Jewish tradition. And I'm going to read you a text. A few months ago, I actually did a lunch and learn where we learned a series of texts about the Jewish tradition and abortion in more detail. I'm going to read you a couple of texts, and they are graphic. And if they are difficult for you to hear, then I would challenge you to think about the difficulty that living in a country without free access to abortion, what that poses for women in this country. In the Mishnah, we read in Ohalot 7:6, if a woman's labor becomes life-threatening, the fetus is dismembered in her womb and then taken out limb by limb. So it is very obvious that we are dealing here with the case not of first trimester or second trimester, but of the very late stages of a pregnancy. And the basis of this is for her life comes before the life of the fetus. The rabbis understood the life of a fetus as having some sanctity, as having some level of, especially in the later stages of pregnancy, but as not being equal to the life of a full human being. The Mishnah continues, once most of the child has emerged and there's a debate, a rather graphic debate about what does most of the child, how does one define that? But the Mishnah is very clear, once most of the child has emerged, it is not to be touched, for one life is not put aside for another. So when you have a child that has been mostly birthed, and that child is now understood to be a full life, then we don't choose between one life and another. But before the child emerges from the womb, the child in the latest stages of pregnancy is understood to be not the equivalent of a full life. And not only is abortion permitted, but it is actually required. And I'll read to you just another teaching from Maimonides, who says that this is a negative commandment, okay? Meaning, and what is the negative commandment? One must not take pity on the life of a rodef. So the rodef means to pursue, as in rodef shalom uvakshehu, pursue peace. This is a category of some Judaism requires that you kill in self-defense if somebody is coming to take your life. And the fetus is understood to be a pursuer. The fetus is something which is endangering the life of the mother, and therefore the sages taught, I continue with Maimonides, if a pregnant woman's labor becomes life-threatening, it is permitted to dismember the fetus in her womb, either by medication or by hand, for it is like a rodef who is pursuing her to kill. And then it continues, but from the moment the head emerges, it's not to be touched, as we learned about in the Mishnah. But Maimonides actually categorizes this as a negative commandment, that we should not take pity on the fetus. In other words, don't hold back from doing this. It's hard, but you got to do it because the law is very clear. So I want to encourage all of us, for Jews to practice Judaism, for Jewish women to practice Judaism, for Jewish families to practice Judaism, in the way that we understand, then we need to live in a country where abortion access is free and unfettered, because those decisions should be, we should be allowed to make those decisions as Jews. And in the letter, I didn't print it out, but an email was sent out with some materials, and this issue came up a number of years ago with then Governor Pat McCrory. And I quoted a statement from Thomas Jefferson, who says that we need a moral society, but essentially the government should only decide on cases of morality where all religions agree. And there is not agreement in this country as to the beginning of life, as to when life begins, and as to how good and moral people make these decisions. And so the government should stay out. And I want to just say that very clearly from the Bima, so that people understand the Jewish tradition on this. And I will encourage you, which I don't normally do, but I will encourage you politically to be involved in the ways that you think you should be involved and can be involved, in order to stop this decision from being overturned, so that Jews in the whole United States have the opportunity to practice Judaism freely. I ask you now to please rise. We turn in the back of our Siddurim and say a prayer for our congregation community and for our country at this moment. Ribono shel olam, bless this congregation, those who lead and serve it, and those who contribute to its strength. Grant us the gift of Shabbat, a day to rest, a day to study your Torah, a day to reach out to you in prayer, a day to feel the joy of community, and to remember the importance of giving tzedakah. Help us to be your faithful partners, preserving this world for future generations. Our God and God of our ancestors, we ask your blessings for our country, for its government, for its leaders and advisors, and for all who exercise just and rightful authority. Bless the inhabitants of our country with your spirit. Watch over all those entrusted with our safety as they daily put their lives at risk to protect us and our freedoms. Be with them in times of danger. Give them courage to act with honor and dignity, as well as insight to do what is right in your eyes. May citizens of all races and creeds forge a common bond in true harmony, to banish hatred and bigotry, and to safeguard the ideals and free institutions that are pride and glory of our country. And let us say, Amen.